Hi, I am Neil Anderson. I'm a current Ma124 student. Um, and today I want to talk to you guys about a voting method known as instant runoff voting. It's also referred to as IRV. But this system has started to be used. It's a little bit newer as it's starting to be used within the United States. And there have been studies that have been conducted as far as is this something that we should take a look into? And that's kind of what we're going to get into today. And we'll also go over how IRV works. But in order to do that, we need to kind of start to establish a firm basis of what IRV is. So, IRV, instant runoff voting, is also known as the plurality with elimination method. And the way that this works is you have people voting for their top choices, and the the top choice with the fewest votes, first place votes, will be eliminated. And like I said, we're going to go over an example of this so you guys can kind of see how this works out and how we kind of put this all into play and things like that. But that gets eliminated, and then that person's second choice then becomes the first place vote. So with this one, it's interesting because it takes a little spin on things, and it says basically, hey, instead of just being majority, you have to choose one or the other. Your other votes still matter, right? And so with this plurality with elimination method, what happens is it keeps going and going until one candidate, or say we're voting on our favorite ice cream, until chocolate has more than 50% of the votes. Now, as I said before, there are some states that are starting to take a look into this and seeing how instant runoff voting works, and they've conducted some studies. Now, one of those states that have been conducting these studies and taking a look into seeing if it's working has been Maine. They took a look into it to see if, is this a possible, variation from what we're doing with just having majority vote. And so there's a study conducted there. There's also been studies conducted in South Carolina, California, Washington, Arizona, and Florida. So this is something that is starting to kind of gain a little bit of headway within the United States, and taking a look and seeing, hey, do we have a chance at kind of changing how our voting system is currently working? And is there a better way to be doing things? Now, like I said, I wanted to go over an example with you guys. And so we're going to go ahead and go over that. And this is going to take a little bit of time, and I'm going to kind of walk you guys through it as we go here. So I already put together an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to kind of explain. So up at the top, in that top row, we have the number of voters. And so as you can see here in row C, we have 51, row D, we have 21, row E, 30, F, 45, G, 60, H, 70, and I, 36. And so, like I said, in order for us to find out who the winner is, we need to actually have more than 50% of the votes go to one of the candidates. And so obviously, as you can see, I listed off candidates and I just used letters. So we used A through J, and just kind of put them together just to take a look and see how this exactly works. So first off the bat, we're just going to eliminate everybody who has no first place votes whatsoever at all. And so in red, you can see down in the key below that we've eliminated due to not enough first place votes. So they actually had no first place votes at all. So candidates H, F, and J off the bat were just out of there. So we got rid of them. And on the side over here, you can see we have percentage of votes. And so this shows how much of a percentage each candidate has. Excuse me. And so as you can see, we went up to A and we saw, okay, well, A has first place votes. How many first place votes do they have? They have 70. B, how many first place votes do they have? 51. C, 21. D, 45. E, 60. Like I said, we eliminated F, H, and J. So F has 0% of the vote, or 0 votes. G has 30. H has 0. I has 36. J has 0. Now, like I said before, we are taking a look and we want them to have 50% or more. So I have a breakdown over here, as you guys can see, as far as it pertains to what percent of the votes do they have. And the way that we get the percent of the votes that they have is we take the number that is in column N, and we say, okay, well, A has 70 votes. Well, we have a total vote count of 313. So we do 70 divided by 313, and that gave us 22% of the votes. And you can see as the list goes down here, just exactly how many votes each candidate has, what percentage they have. And then it totals up, and this is just checking our math, making sure that they have 100%, because, right, we're doing it out of 100%. If those numbers don't match up, then our voting system would be off. So then the way that this works is we continue until we have a candidate with 50% of the votes. So we go to round 2, and we see our first place vote start to drop out because they have the least amount of first place votes. And so we eliminated candidate C. Now, when we eliminate candidate C, if we look in this column right here, we'll see that candidate C has 21 votes, and that's the least. And so that drops out. And so we have to take them out of every single one, as you can see highlighted in green. That's red. Green. And so we take a look at this. E moves up to the first place vote and gains those first place votes. So E originally had 60 votes, and then we went ahead and added 21 votes to that 60. So E now has 81 votes out of the 313, giving us 26% for E. Obviously, all the rest of them, they're going to change a little bit, but they're not going to go up as much. They won't, or anything like that. So taking a look at it, now that we have 26% of the votes, okay, we have to take a look and see, hey, is this more than 50% of the overall votes, giving us a majority? Obviously, 26% is less than 50%, so they don't have enough yet. We're going to go to round 3, and we're doing the same thing over again. And we're just going to repeat this process, like I said, until we have a candidate that has more than 50% of the votes. And so in round 3, we see that G is the next lowest, having only 30 votes. And so we're going to take those 30 votes, and we're going to go down here. And like we said, we eliminated candidate C. And so candidate C got eliminated out of this row, along with G, moving B up 2 spots. So this person's third place vote has now become their first place vote. All right. So candidate B, we added 30 to theirs, and they originally only had 51 to start. So they now have 81 votes as well. So now we see two candidates that are trying to compete for that first position, trying to get the majority of the votes now, and they are both at 26. Now, as we go along, we have to remember with this over here, we have to take out the votes from the candidate. So we eliminated candidate G, and G originally had 30 votes. If we don't take those 30 votes off, it ruins what our system is. And if we're not taking away those votes, it still keeps an extra 30 votes in the system. So we have to make sure, as you can see, that we take those votes away. Otherwise, now we have a total of 343 instead of 313. We always need to remain at 313. So I'm just going to put this back to 0 here real quick. We then moved on to round 4, and we took a look at, okay, well, who's our next person that doesn't have enough votes? And we see that in round 4, we eliminate candidate D. So we're going through the same process all over again. We're going to eliminate candidate D from all over the board. Okay, so candidate D no longer had enough first place votes to stay in the race. And so candidate D's 45 votes are now going to drop down to candidate B. And so we added that 45 to the 81 that we had before. And you can kind of see up here what we've been totaling so far. So we started out with 51, we added another 30, and now we're adding 45. So now we have candidate B with 40%. Now the interesting thing about this is that it's not over until we get to that majority rule of over 50%. And so at any point, a candidate can come in and take a whole bunch of votes, which is just kind of amazing. It kind of keeps things moving, and really still, like I said before, makes you feel like you have a say in the final vote or the final candidate that wins. We're now going to move on to round 5, where we eliminate candidate I. Candidate I had 36 votes, which was not enough to keep them in the running. And I kind of did this out of order. It should have been we eliminated candidate I, and then we eliminate candidate D. So I messed up a little bit there, but it still works out. It's still fine, because in round 5, candidate D would have been eliminated instead. But when we take a look at this, we see candidate I has 36 votes, and we need to figure out, okay, well, where do we now put these next 36 votes to? Now, the interesting thing is, as people start to drop off, even though it might have not been this person's first choice, like candidate D or candidate HFJ, just for example, it's still going to eliminate those ones from their choices. So now we have to go all the way down, and we see that candidate B is their 7th choice, but now that not their 7th choice, but their 6th choice. And so candidate B moves from 6th in that person's choice all the way up to their first place votes. So they get the 36 votes. And like I said before, we've been keeping track as we go along here. And so they get another 36 votes. They now have 162 votes, putting them over the majority and giving them 52% of the votes. So we would now say, okay, well, candidate B is the majority winner. Okay. I just want to take some time to talk about the studies that have gone on, just taking a look into that, and some of the pros and cons that they have found from these studies. Okay. So, like we just looked at, we know that it has to be a majority rule. Okay. And so when we're looking at the pros, we want to see, are these really worth it? Are they not worth it? That kind of deal. And so the first pro that I wanted to go over is that there's only one election that needs to be held. And this can save money in the long run. As you know, right now, currently, the way that our voting system works, there is multiple votings that go on up to the main voting for, we're going to say, for the president. Okay. That happens in November. So we have all those preliminaries leading up to, November, which is the important one. You have to pick one or the other. And like we showed in the example, you have the option to pick, candidate A as your first choice, candidate D as your second choice, so on and so forth. And so it starts to eliminate this process of, okay, well, we're going to vote on one right now. Okay, well, we're going to vote on the next one. All right. And then so on and so forth until we get to that November point, which saves a lot of money in the long run. And so it's a cheaper election process. A huge thing right now, and I know for me, especially, is not always feeling like, okay, well, does my vote really matter? Because with majority, you have to choose one or the other. If you choose one and they don't win, well, then your vote's kind of just meh, like it's gone. I mean, you did your part, you did what you're supposed to do, but your votes doesn't count towards somebody that you may have wanted to be in office. And so in this method of voting, the IRV, we see that no matter what the outcome is, you picked, all these candidates and you had them in this order of, okay, this is a person I want to be in or want to be in office. And if they end up coming out on top, then you win. It's, you feel like your vote mattered. It counted in the end. The last pro I want to cover, with this method, it opens up doors for looking into alternatives. And when I say looking into alternatives, what I mean, sorry. What I mean by that is it expands your mind. It forces you to think a little bit more when this process is going on. Okay, it's not just everything's locked down, like this is how it is, this is how it's going to be, it's not changing. So it's not really just like one way of thinking. You have to think on multiple levels and think of different ways. Not just like you yourself as a voter, but also the people that are running for office, which I just thought was interesting to look at. So basically opening up more perspectives, which is just, I think is really cool. Anyways, now we're going to take a look at some cons that are going on when it comes to IRV. So most people are used to the majority rule. You pick one or you pick the other. And so they would go into the poll thinking, okay, well, I've always been doing this. I've done this for so many years. I pick one candidate and that's the candidate. that I chose, this kind of changes that. And so what we could see, and why this would be a con, is people would go into the voting polls and they would only pick their one candidate that they want to win, and then that would be it. Now, here's where that becomes an issue. If they pick one candidate and they don't choose to pick the other candidates as their second, third, fourth, etc. choice, their vote kind of gets tossed out if that candidate doesn't have enough first place votes. Okay, so that kind of sucks, and that's a place where we could see some loss of votes. It's hard to understand, different things like that. Next con that I wanted to take a look at, it could be illegal. Now, the reason why I say it could be illegal, there's nothing like huge about it. It's the fact of some communities force you to pick one or the other. Like, that's how it is. And like I said, it's because they want a clear point of view. Okay, I want this person and this person only. And this is a way that we've been doing it for so long. And when you try to change things, obviously things don't go over so smoothly all the time. We know that from history, seeing how that works. Last thing I want to say as a con, we talked about one of the pros as it's saving money because it's only one election. There is a con. It can also not save money, and it can be expensive because we are counting all of these different votes and taking a look. And so it takes a longer time period. Okay. So for somebody to sit down and say, okay, candidate H didn't have any first place votes. Okay, so we're going to cross that one off. All right. Candidate J, okay, cross that one off. And we're going through several rounds in just one sitting. It can lead to a longer process, taking longer to count. Just to wrap some stuff up here, like I said, I think that IRV is definitely very, very interesting. It is a different way of voting. And like I said, I think it brings more options for us to take a look into having people feel like their vote counts, which is great, by all means. It's just something that would take time and something that people would have to get used to. Change isn't easy, but it's definitely something that I think that as a country we could probably take a look into and see how it works. Continue to do these studies on IRV and maybe start to implement it so that it's not you're just voting for one. Okay, that candidate doesn't win. This candidate wins and it's over. I hope that you found this video helpful. Thank you for watching and have a great day.